God, I hate the 17 games. Can I just say that right now? Like it used to be, we're a quarter way through the season. You sort of know who you are.
Right.
We're not technically it. It's so frustrating. I'm happy for more football, but it just it drives me a little crazy how I got to think about things now. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome into another edition of the Chop Shop. This week we're brought to you by Starbucks Triple Shot Energy Drink. Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome into another edition of the Chop Shop, where I sit down with my good friend Mark Schlereth and go into great detail what we saw week 4 of the NFL. We break these games down to the studs. And Mark, something's going to happen on this show today that I don't think has ever happened before. We're going to have a fight.
Yeah, the kids hate it when mom and dad fight. But you know what? We always make up.
We do.
We rarely ever fight, but when we do have a disagreement, we handle it like professional adults.
And we'll get to that a little bit later, but I think we have to start with what we saw on the Monday night game, and what we saw was an absolute domination by the Bolts. The only thing that stopped the Chargers last night was the lightning delay at SoFi. Who knew you could have a lightning delay at a stadium that had a canopy? It's not a dome stadium, but there's something over it. That was weird. And by the way, lightning delays in LA in general, very, very rare. But the Bolts took the energy from the Bolts and just took it right to the Vegas Raiders. This stat line, Mark, to me was absolutely incredible. At halftime, the Raiders had 1 first down and had more penalty yards than total yards, and we're down 21-0. Like, I could think of worse halves, but it would take me a while.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And, you know, I find it fascinating what they've done, Tom Telesco with the Chargers, what they've done to revamp and rebuild that offensive line, the physical nature, what Austin Eckler has become in that backfield for them, the way they ran the ball, just that the balance that they have, and then a quarterback who, frankly, is just, he is just proven to be top notch. You keep waiting for, hey, is there going to be a sophomore slump? Will there ever be a regression? Yeah, this kid has been, since day one, he's been lights out. And, you know, they really are the best team in the AFC West right now, or at least playing the best. And defensively, they put it on them. You know, Brandon Staley comes over from the Rams, and that defense was exciting. I mean, they were just like, hey, man, they're like the global gym of defense right now. We're better than you. We know it. And our players are going to shut down your players. And I love the confidence with which this team is playing right now.
Yeah, they really are. And look, Herbert has everything. You know, that guy, the Miami Dolphins realizing that they passed on Herbert to take Tua, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah, right.
That's a tough one. And listen, I hope Tua has a great career. I hope that things go well for him. But right now, it ain't looking real good in Miami, and it's looking real good in LA.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, it is one of those things you just never know. And that's what makes the draft such a 50-50 crapshoot proposition is no matter how good you are in college, you don't know how you're going to react to the next level. And some guys, as you know, come from smaller schools, or some guys come that aren't as, that aren't showered with accolades, and they just get in the NFL and they get it. They understand it. It just makes sense to them. And some guys come out of these big schools that, that they're highly touted, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't translate. And I'm not saying that it won't for Tua, and I'm not saying that he can't become good, but from day one, when Herbert was thrust in there after they punctured their starting quarterback's lung, and he goes, "You got 4 minutes, and by the way, you're starting," and he's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, I'm good."
Against the defending Super Bowl champs and Patrick Mahomes, by the way.
Right.
So the Raiders, look, I still think they're a good team, but I always take the long view on the Raiders because last year they started 6-3 and they lost 5 of their last 7 and didn't make the playoffs. I do believe their defense is going to keep them in more games, but Derek Carr was playing at an MVP level going into last night's stink, and that Chargers defense, and they're finally healthy, right? That's the thing we've always said about the Chargers. Can they just stay healthy? Can they just stay healthy? Well, they're healthy through what is almost the first quarter of the season. God, I hate the 17 games. Can I just say that right now? Like it used to be, we're a quarter way through the season. You sort of know who you are.
Right.
We're not technically it. It's so frustrating. I'm happy for more football, but it just it drives me a little crazy how I got to think about things now.
Somewhere about, I don't know how many minutes into the second quarter you'll actually be technically, or is it the end of the first quarter Yeah, it's the end of
I
the
don't
first quarter, right? That you'll
Yeah.
technically be through the first quarter of the season. Is that how that works?
I don't know. Whatever it is. We got the 17 game thing. There is only one unbeaten team left in the NFL. And I think we all expected it to be the Arizona Cardinals. Kudos to Steve Keim, the general manager, for the squad he's put together. They went into L.A. at SoFi on Sunday and basically took it right at the Rams. That was a physical beating. It wasn't just, Kyler Murray's going to run around and make some plays, which he did. They did what you always like to do. They imposed their will on the Rams.
They did. And I'm telling you what, Steve Keim, you want to talk about giant onions.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You drafted a guy 9th overall, and I talked to Steve Keim about Kyler Murray and goes, when I watched the tape, because I didn't want to fall in love with him. I didn't want to like him.
Yeah.
But I did, and I had to make a decision. You think about that decision. Yeah, hey, sorry I just wasted a bunch of your money drafting Josh Rosen, but he can't play. Oh, sorry I wasted a bunch of your money on hiring a head coach that doesn't fit with that. I'm going to fire both Josh Rosen and the head coach, and I'm gonna draft me Kyler Murray, and I'm going to go get Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm totally revamping it. It's either you are genius or you never work in the NFL again.
Yeah,
and
that was it.
Steve Keim rolled the dice on Steve Keim, and I'll tell you what, he looks like, at this point, he looks like a genius, and you're 100% right. Like, had you laid down money at your place, Caesars, or my place, Bet Rivers, or anybody else that you lay down money at, right? If you'd have done that, like, who in their right mind would have bet on Arizona to be the last man standing with an undefeated record? Like,
no.
Nobody? Would anybody?
Nope. Yeah. Their over-under at Caesars was 8 wins before the season began, according to at Caesars Sportsbook. And they were the only team in that division that had a win total of under 10.
Yeah.
People thought they were going to be good. Nobody thought they were going to be this good out of the gate.
Right, and you're right. The thing that has been different is the way that the commitment they have to running the ball and the way that they're running the ball, Trey. And they'll spread you out with, 3 wides, 4 wides, and they'll just, what their whole theory is, man, you're going to have to play us. You're going to have to match us in nickel. You're going to have to match us in dime. We're going to get our big bodies. We're going to double team at the point of attack, get a big body in there, and we're going to spread you out on the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to run against light boxes. And they've done it to perfection. And when things do break down, you can play the play perfectly. It's not the first 3 seconds. It's the next 6 seconds that Kyler Murray creates that you can't, I don't care how good you are as a defensive back, you can't stay plastered in this league for 6 seconds. And so he avoids everybody. You play it perfectly, and you're like, dude, it's over. I mean, the guy, he is the most exciting player right now to watch, because when he does take off and he does make things happen, whether it's a run or whether it's just creating more opportunity, something great happens almost 100% of the time. And that's what's so exciting to see.
It is. And the other thing, which is funny, and I sort of have to chuckle at this because I hear people say, wow, Kyler's playing a lot better than he did in 2019 and 2020. Well, it's like if you play more football and you have better football players around you, amazingly, you get better at playing football, right? Like in 2019, he didn't have DeAndre Hopkins. 2020, he gets DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, by the way, they've rediscovered how to use Christian Kirk in this offense. And oh, by the way, they bring in Adriel Jeremiah Green, who's played really well for them. And oh, by the way, they take Rondell Moore in the draft, who's an exciting. It's crazy how much better you are as a quarterback when the talent around you is better.
Right, when you get better talent, and then you commit to saying, hey, we're going to be a little bit more balanced so that you have to play honestly. That is an amazing thing that when you get really good players, how much smarter you become as a coach, right?
It's crazy. I never would have thought those two things would be correlated, but here we are. Obviously, they're a team to watch, and if he isn't the most exciting player in football to watch, the other one who probably is Patrick Mahomes for a variety of reasons, and he put on a show as Andy. By the way, we have to just acknowledge that Andy Reid's never going to get the credit he deserves as a head coach because he plays in the Bill Belichick era, and everyone's like, well, how come you didn't do what Bill Belichick did? Okay, that's never happening again. It's the ultimate unicorn and outlier in the history of all sports, so just understand that. But before we talk about the Chiefs proper, kudos to Andy Reid for doing it in Philadelphia, by the way, going back to where he had 130 wins as a coach and gets his 100th win as a head coach of the Chiefs, thus becoming the first coach in NFL history with at least 100 wins for two franchises. He is one of the absolute best to ever do it.
He really is, and I think you see the innovation and design in his offense, especially when you get down to the red zone. They are so good with the underhand tosses on the shovel passes and all the different things that they do to exploit a defense and to put you into harm's way. What they do in the screen game, how he runs the football. My only criticism is sometimes he doesn't want to be balanced. He wants to be.
Yes, he forgets about the run sometimes. Yes.
Right. But he is an innovator of offense. He is he's just such a great designer of plays and designer of offense in general. People love playing for the guy, and he's been an exceptional coach. You think about last week, the average game has 12 to 13 offensive possessions in it.
Yeah.
They had 8 offensive possessions. They scored 6 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah.
So that's seven times. And then the 8th one was a one-play kneel down, was their 8th possession.
Yep.
Literally 6 possessions, 6 touchdowns. The other possession ended with an interception. That's it. You want this is why that whole, you work it to perfection. Philadelphia, possess the clock. Philadelphia, don't let Mahomes get the ball. Philadelphia, try to squeeze it from 12 to 8 possessions, and you've got a chance. You don't have a chance when 6 times they score 7, right? That's what they are.
He threw 5 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes. And Tyreek Hill went off in that game. By the way, that was just the 4th punt-free game in NFL history in the regular season. There's also a 5th one, which was a playoff game, which also included the Chiefs. It was a divisional or wild card game between the Colts and the Chiefs in 2003 postseason. So the good news for the Chiefs is they showed you if we don't beat ourselves, more often than not, we're going to win. Right? That's what we learned. If we don't beat ourselves with stupid mistakes and turnovers, we're going to win. The problem is this may be the worst defense I've seen in Kansas City over the last 4 years. They've always been sort of okay, but not great. They're really bad right now. They cannot rush the passer. Clark is nowhere near what he used to be. They've moved Chris Jones to the outside. He doesn't have the feel for it, Mark. I feel like he's always picking the wrong gap. I think they need to move Jones back inside and find another way to get a different pass rush through scheme because what they're doing now isn't working.
Yeah, the Jones thing is interesting because where he's great is when he's singled up over a guard. When he's playing a 3-technique defensive tackle and you've got edge rushers on the outside. Back in the day, like you mentioned, Chris Clark, back in the day when they had D Ford, guys that could really turn corners.
Justin Houston.
Right, guys. Like a guy like Chris Jones is a really good player, but he's not a guy that threatens you speed-wise out there on the edge. So, what happens to you as an offensive lineman is when you have a guy that can not only overpower you, but can also get by you with speed, quickness, athleticism. Now it makes it really hard because you've got to make a decision in your mind. How am I going to set this guy? Is it going to be soft? Is it going to be firm? What am I going to do? And when you've got a guy that can do both really well, that's what makes that guy hard. He's a much better player from a pass rush standpoint inside than he is outside. So your observations are 100% correct. And then, your propensity just to give up big plays on the defensive side of the ball, big explosive plays. You're right. Every weekend they give up 30-plus points on the defensive side of the ball, and they'll outscore a lot of teams, but that's not necessarily a recipe to win championships. You'll get to the playoffs because you're so dynamic offensively, but eventually it's going to come back to bite you.
They're going to have to make a few stops on defense, figure out ways to make stops, just 1 or 2 a game. But right now, look, they got their stride back. They really should be 4-0 if they hadn't made some stupid mistakes.
Right.
But they need to realize their margin for error is very, very low right now and how stacked the AFC as a conference is. All right, why don't we take a break, and when we come back, the fight, we're going to throw down verbally. Stay with us. Starbucks Triple Shot Energy, extra strength coffee beverage in a can. That Starbucks coffee you love, ready to drink. 4 core flavors, of course, as you know: vanilla, dark roast, cafe mocha, and caramel. And now they're offering 2 zero sugar options as well: black and vanilla. Energy to do you for the things that you want to do. Like for me, gearing up for a great guest and an interview on a podcast, watching the games, or getting ready to kick somebody's butt on the golf course, which happens a lot. What gives you energy? Find your Starbucks Triple Shot Energy online or at your local store. All right, back with the Chop Shop here, and as promised, Mark and I are about to fight. Something happened at the end of the Ravens-Broncos game. In that game, very late, it was 23-7 was the score. The Broncos threw it into the end zone and got intercepted, and there was 3 seconds left on the clock. Well, when the Ravens got the ball back, everyone thought they were going to kneel down, but they didn't, because the Ravens had a streak of 42 straight games rushing for at least 100 yards, and 43 in a row would have tied the NFL record with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So instead of taking a knee, what does John Harbaugh order his team to do? They go out and run Lamar Jackson to the left. He picks up 4 yards. Boom! They get 100 yards rushing for the game. Streak is intact. And afterwards, Vic Fangio said it was Bush League. It was the worst thing he's ever seen. Harbaugh responded by saying, "Why are you throwing it into the end zone? You're down 16 points. You're not going to get a 17-point play." And you hated it, right?
Yeah, ultimately, Trey, in the overall scheme of things, it doesn't, it's not that big of a deal, but it is a violation of code of conduct from a coaching standpoint. And here's why I'll say that. If I was playing, as an analyst, I'm like, whatever, but if I was playing, I'd be irritated. I'd be pissed off about it. And here's my point is this, is that, you violate this kind of code of conduct, these unwritten rules, because you've got a 16-point lead. You take a knee. And Vic Fangio talked about player safety. I don't give a rip about player safety. Here's how I know that John Harbaugh knows. And John is a friend. I love John. But here's how John Harbaugh knows he violated the code of conduct. First off, Lamar Jackson comes out and was asked right after the game, goes, "Yeah, I didn't have any idea about the record. I just thought we were going to take a knee and be done with it." And then John Harbaugh comes out, they ask him about it, and John says this is not on my players. I'm mitigating their responsibility by 100%. This is a record that I wanted. This is on me. Meaning, in my mind, you knew you violated the secret code. You did something that is considered taboo. And let me just tell you, when it comes to juju, you're going to get yours. I mean, here's the thing about what's going on in the league with all the penalties for taunting and stuff. They're trying to take
Which, by the way, are terrible. It's that we could do a whole show on how bad that rule is.
Right. But the whole principle of that rule really is about trying to take control of the frontier justice that's been a part of this league forever. And I'm not saying that anybody's going to go after Lamar or anybody's going to do that stuff, but it will be in that situation in the back of your mind. So, for instance, if we break the huddle and I'm playing, and this happened before, and it's happened several times before, we walk up and say, "Hey, man, we're going down, right? We've got the lead. We're going to beat you." And everybody says, "All right." And the ball snapped and nobody, everybody just kind of touches up and it's over, right? Then there's that one overzealous kid that thinks
Greg
he's going to that's going to create a fumble.
The head coach of the Bucs, who did this at Rutgers, and he did it diving and trying to create the ball. Yeah.
Right. So you do it, and then you know what happens? We go back to the huddle and say, "I got something for his punk ass." Yeah. And the next one, we're going down, and 3 guys fire at his knee.
Yeah. And
that's what happens. And I've been part of it. I've seen it happen. I've done it because, it's one of those things, John Rambo. They drew first blood, not me. Right?
All right.
So be careful when you're walking.
I hear you. All right. Now allow me to counter.
Okay, please.
First of all, the Schiano thing and that diving when we're taking a knee, totally different in my mind. Totally different. Because that's a team that is literally saying, we're giving up. What I love about what Harbaugh did is that I appreciate the honesty. Do you remember the December game, week 16 or 17 last year? Actually, one of the first chop shops we ever did, where Alvin Kamara had a chance to set the record with 7 touchdowns in that game. And everyone was talking about it. And late in that game, Sean Payton decided Taysom Hill needs a touchdown. And he gave the touchdown to Taysom Hill instead of to Alvin Kamara. Now, Alvin Kamara went back in the game later and got his 6th, which ties the record with Ernie Nevers and Gale Sayers for most touchdowns in a game. But Alvin Kamara could have had the record for the most touchdowns ever scored in a game with 7, and somehow Sean Payton decided it was more important to get Taysom Hill in the end zone. I don't understand that. I respect Harbaugh for saying, hey, this is a good record we've got here. We're not going to try and hurt anybody. We're just going to run a play. And I want to keep that record intact. I respect that honesty about him.
Yeah, no, I respect the honesty too. I'm not saying that it wasn't honest, and he took full responsibility for it because he knew he stepped over that quote unquote unwritten rule line. He knows it. I know it. Anybody who plays understands it. But is it, like I said, is it the end of the world? No. Is it, I'll go back to this. It's no big deal. Play every play, finish it out. I remember in a playoff game in 2015 when John Harbaugh cried like a biatch after New England, used some trick plays and some trick formations.
Not a good look for him. I totally agree with you. Agree with you.
Again, it's one of those, hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you feel like you were violated basically on the the unwritten rules, like these are things that get talked about. And again, I'll go back to New England when they jammed it up everybody's butt in 2007. I'll never forget, they're up 38-0, I think, against Washington when and Joe Gibbs, and they went for it on 4th and 2, and Bill Belichick said we were giving the Washington team a chance to work on their stop us on their 4th down.
We're giving them an opportunity to stop us.
Right.
But do you remember what Joe Gibbs said? Remember what Joe Gibbs said after that game?
No.
He was asked about it, and he said, "I have no problem with what they did. 0."
Yeah, right. And you know what Joe Gibbs said after the doors were closed with his football team?
Mother effer.
No, he would never cuss.
He would say mother puss buckets or that mother father shut the front door.
He would have come on that, and that's where probably Vic Fangio needs to have a better filter. But listen, that is one of those things that if you do it, and that tour of the New England Patriots where they shoved it up everybody's can doing that, ultimately here's where the juju comes back. You're 18-0, you go through the playoffs, and then you lose to the Giants. Hey, it'll get you. It'll get you. That's all I'm saying. Just be prepared, Baltimore Ravens.
I didn't think it was that Bush, and I thought Fangio's over-the-top response was ridiculous. I loved Harbaugh's response. Well, okay, if the game's over, why are you throwing into the end zone? There's not a 16-point play.
But that's what it's a 2-point, it's a 2-score game, and that's what everybody who's losing continues to play. It's when you're supposed to, when you've got an insurmountable lead and there's 10 seconds left or 3 seconds left on the clock, you say, tip of the cap, we won. That's just been the standard operating procedure.
Here's where and we'll move on. Here's where I draw the line. If they had thrown the ball, like and tried to score, I'd be like, that's completely crap. They just wanted to keep the record going. I didn't see it as this egregious violation like the Greg Schiano trying to dive over the pile. I see them differently.
Right. I will concede. They are different. I will concede with that. They are different. Still, however, it's still a code violation. And and just expect that there's a potential code red.
As Sil said in The Sopranos, not a hanging offense. Speaking of conceding, do we have to concede that the Dallas Cowboys might be really bleeping good this year? Look at what they've done.
Yeah.
They took the Bucs to the wire, although, as I said, week 1 they found a way to lose, which they did all of last year. Then they go to L.A., take care of the Chargers. They do exactly what you want a good team to do, beat the crap out of a bad team as they just abused the Eagles on Monday night. And then they took down the previously undefeated Carolina Panthers. Their 3-1 looks pretty good to me, and the way they're doing it looks really good to me.
Well, what they did to the Carolina Panthers, Like I like to joke around all the time. There are people that did less to get themselves, 5 to 10 of the state pin than what they did to the Carolina Panthers. You want to talk about physically dominating a line of scrimmage and just completely obliterating. And then we talk about draft. We talk about dynamic players. We talk about changing the trajectory of your football team. How about what Diggs is doing at the cornerback position and what Parsons is doing at the linebacker position? Going from the middle to the edge, being an edge rusher, basically wreaking havoc on the line of scrimmage. And then Diggs, this former offensive player, I think, in high school and I think even at Alabama for a time before he switched over to the defensive side. He just has a bead on what the offense is trying to do. He has a feel for routes, route combinations, the timing of the quarterback, when the ball is coming out of his hand. And he just is, a breaking on the ball fool. And they are, I'm watching that game yesterday going, damn, they're a good football team. They're a really good football team. And that was, that game became a lot closer than it really was, but that was physical domination. Absolutely.
What I love, first of all, on the Diggs thing, I'm a big believer in coaching. I know everybody says it's not the X's and O's, it's the Willies and Joes. It's both, okay? You need both, unless you're Patrick Mahomes. But give it up for Dan Quinn, former Atlanta Falcons head coach, made his name for himself in the NFL as a DC with the Seahawks. The Cowboys' defense last year was putrid. It was steaming hot garbage. They gave up the most points in franchise history. For the season, they were -3 in the turnover differential. Right now, they're tied with Buffalo at +7 for the turnover differential. Diggs has 5 interceptions in 4 games, and they're not giving the ball away either. I think Dan Quinn has found a secret sauce with this defensive unit. Oh, by the way, arguably their best defender, Tank Lawrence, isn't on the field right now. He has a broken foot that he suffered, was it week 1 or week 2? I think it was week 1 against the Bucs. So he's not playing. Micah Parsons has been amazing all over the field. They're getting pass rush from everybody because of the schemes that Gus Bradley is dialing up. If you could give an assistant coach of the month award for September, I absolutely would give it to Dan Quinn.
Yeah, that was me planting a Freudian slip in your head. You said Gus Bradley. You meant Dan Quinn again.
Dan Quinn, yes.
That's my fault. Anyhow, you're 100% right. Dan Quinn is a builder of men and a builder of relationships, and he does such a great job. Now, I thought he did a great job in Atlanta, but they never were able to overcome that loss in the Super Bowl. You're up 28-3. They just never, mentally, I don't think they ever overcame that, Trey. But
That's fair.
Dan Quinn's one of my favorite NFL people. He's one of my favorite guys because
Great guy.
He keeps it simple. His players play really hard for him. And he's really about building relationships and growing up, helping mature young men. And they love playing for him, and I think it shows, man, the effort level that they give, the attention to detail that they have, and like I said, the keep it simple, stupid nature of Dan Quinn to just say, I'm going to let you guys play it at full speed because I'm not going to burden you with a bunch of stuff. It just works, and they're doing a phenomenal job right now.
And I have to point out something else because La'el Collins is suspended. And, he was a big part of that offensive line. This kid, Terrence Steele, who has stepped in and played right tackle, is mauling people. Go watch. The Cowboys offensive line right now looks like the 2016 offensive line when they just dominated people up front, Zeke and Dak's rookie year, and they were just plowing people over. They are taking people out right now on that offensive line. And Terrence Steele is a guy that nobody knows because he's a backup right tackle in the NFL. Watch number 78 in the next Cowboys game that they play. He has been incredible.
He really has, and they've been great up front. And that's one thing that the Carolina Panthers have done a great job of is they play this 3-3-5 defense under Phil Snow, their defensive coordinator. And what they create is you have to decide as a group, who are we going to take in pass pro, right? Who's going to be the fourth down? Is it Burns? Is it somebody else? The 4 downs and how are we going to, we can only take 5 if we're in a 5-man protection. So who are the 4 downs plus the extra guy? And because of the style with which they play, it makes it really hard to designate who we have up front. Yeah. And in the running game, they run so many games and they have so many guys playing multiple positions that a lot of times you're unsure when you come off the ball who we got. And they get an edge on you, you miss a block, they make a play in the backfield. The Dallas Cowboys just said, we're going to line up and we're just going to come off like a bulldozer and we'll peel you guys off as you come. And I tell you what, they dominated. They just dominated that group up front. And every time you saw them run the ball, the handoff, it's Zeke Elliott having 5 yards before he even has to contend with a defender. It was a thing of beauty. And you're right about Steele, and that's it. What a great name too, by the way.
Here's the thing: these are the kind of things you're going to get here. No one else is going to tell you how good Terrence Steele is. Okay, and you may not like that or want to know, but we're just telling you what the real inside information is. Like, the Cowboys are doing this because a backup right tackle has decided, I'm going to ball out this year, and he is absolutely mauling people. Let's wrap up Week 4 with the team that I believe is the best team in football right now. I know the Cardinals are 4-0, and they've got all this kind of stuff, but we could talk for 3 hours, and you're not going to convince me that Buffalo isn't the best team in football right now. They are 3-1. And that first week loss that was a clunker to the Steelers where they had 6 holding penalties and they couldn't get out of their own way. A block punt was returned for a touchdown. It was just a bad, sloppy, fluky performance, which I think is going to happen more in the NFL, Mark, with the way we're going with 3 preseason games and nobody really plays them anyway. Week 1 is going to be a real sort of, hey, let's figure this out as we go along, I think, going forward. But my God, they have thumped everybody else they've played. Stink, they already have 2 shutouts through the first 4 weeks. Do you know, since 1972, only 2 other teams have had 2 shutouts through the first 4 weeks of the season? Do you want to know who they are? You played on one of them.
The 91 Washington Redskins.
Boom! And you know what the other one is?
No.
The 2000 Baltimore Ravens. What do those 2 teams have in common, Stink?
World Championships.
Boom! Yeah. Okay? So let's look at what we have in Buffalo here now. You have one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't care. Put him in. Josh Allen is probably top 3, but let's go 4 just to include everybody's happy. Okay? He has what you and I like to call arm arrogance. Open? You're not open? I'll make you open. I have a hose. I have a cannon for a right arm. I can fit it in anywhere. I can run. I have a deep threat. I have underneath guys and Cole Beasley and Knox, and I have a Diggs over the top, and I got a defense that's kicking the shit out of people.
Right.
The Buffalo Bills right now are the most complete team in football.
And listen, man, you're not going to get any argument from me on that. And they have been incredible. What they've done with their quarterback, the way they have propped up their quarterback, and not propped him up. He's a great player. But the way they propped him up in saying, hey, what do you like? What do you feel good about? You like to throw the ball. You like to be in spread. We'll go get you Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs, Cole
Sanders,
Beasley.
yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Cole Beasley doing his thing that he always does. And then, when you look at their defense, Tavarius White is as good a corner that nobody knows about in this league. He'll lock down one side of the field and allow you to use what did I say?
Travarius.
Yeah, you know what I meant.
Gus Bradley. You said Gus Bradley.
Yeah, Tre'Davious. So, and then Poyer, allowing the safeties to and Micah Hyde, allowing the safeties to roam and to double team other players when you got a lockdown corner like White. It just is. It's amazing. The one weakness I would tell you watching them over the last couple of years is I don't ever feel like they've had a big time edge pass rusher. But they got 4 guys up front that can really play. They're a really good defense. This is a really good football team. And like I said, I love the way they have morphed this offense into, really leaning on their quarterback's strengths.
And I'll wrap it up with this one other note. Okay, I mentioned the other 2 teams that won Super Bowls and shutouts through the first 2 for the first 4 weeks. How about this one? The Bills are just the 3rd team in the last 50 seasons to have multiple 35-point shutouts. In other words, they score at least 35 or more and shut them out in a 3-week span. The other 2 teams, the 87 Niners, who didn't win the Super Bowl that year, but the 85 Bears, who won Super Bowl 20. So right now, the Buffalo defense, in an era where you cannot play defense in the NFL, like it's not allowed. You're not supposed to do it. They are statistically comparing to the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens, which in most people's minds would be the top two defenses of the last 50 years.
Yeah, without question.
I mean, you could put the 2015 Broncos in there, but I don't think they were as devastating as those 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears.
Yeah, there was a certain cachet that both those defensive had from just an intimidation factor, an intimidation standpoint that when you knew you went in there and the odds of you having any success at all were slim to none. We went into that 2000 Ravens in the playoffs and absolutely thought we were going to be able to run the ball and do the things we did, and we got pummeled. I think we scored 3 points. I mean, they gave us a courtesy field goal somewhere in there. So
a gentleman's sweep. They let you win one game. That's what that is.
They let us kick a field goal. Okay, you guys can kick one.
There you go. All right, so that'll do it for week 4. Obviously, the themes this week. Stink and I found a way to get through our differences. We like Buffalo, and we're big fans of Gus Bradley. See you next week.
Love you, Gus.
This episode of The Chop Shop was brought to you by Starbucks Triple Shot Energy Drink. All the energy you need in a can, and it's delicious.